but we don't want to have this too late for you. And to make sure we don't go into the next day, we want to start sooner than later. If we can just stand up for a prayer. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Ghost, amen. Come, Holy Ghost, for the hearts of thy faithful, and to kindle them the fire of thy love. Send forth thy Spirit, and they shall be created. Let us pray, O God, who dost instruct the hearts of thy faithful, by the light of the Holy Ghost, grant us by the gift of the same Spirit, to be always truly wise and ever rejoice in his consolation, through Christ our Lord. Amen. Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou among women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus.
Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners now and at the hour of our death. Amen.
Our Lady, Seat of Wisdom,
Pray for us.
St. Pius X,
Pray for us.
in the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Ghost. Amen. So I appreciate your attendance tonight. Certainly we could have had more, but you are the spokespeople of the rest of the parish. So I hope that bodes you well. I can say certainly I've not been on camera often, so I'm not sure how I'll do. But nevertheless, there's a different way of speaking just when it's audio, there's another when it's video. I'll see if I behave myself and act in the proper location. But nevertheless, this is being recorded and even a visual, just so that we have it on record. And know that if we depart from these plans, you can hold me accountable. And certainly if you don't approve, we can go back to these as reference points. But we do want to make as many people advised as possible. And I do have a few show and tell items for you. You might be curious, as any child in a classroom wants to see what has been brought. I have these things. They will be for you to peruse as well afterward. And certain people in the audience today can also be a greater reference point than I can on some of these particular items for you. The purpose, firstly, of this, what we'll call the initial master plan conference for you, is going to be a few-fold. Firstly, is to bring all the parishioners up to date with the developments of BVM and BVMA projects the last year. So since I've been here, I've only been here not even 1 year yet, and there's been a lot that has happened. So to bring you up to these developments as we can see. The second is to keep people informed. So we have to constantly keep you informed. It's only a matter of justice and also a matter of charity to make sure we don't rival or complain about things that might not even be happening, because things do develop and we want to bring you up to date. Is to also communicate ideas. By now, God willing, you know that I am filled with ideas. And I mean at times you need to temper them. And certainly I have a team of people that will help temper, a team of priests that have come to watch and temper my thoughts. But also to share some blessings. Some things have come through that you might not be aware of. So some blessings to be shared. And also some avoidance of possible crosses. You might have ideas that can help us avoid crosses, problems in the future. But by not exposing these things to you, we would not avoid those crosses. But as well, to avoid possible rumors to go out when they're not even true. So again, the purpose of this conference tonight. I do seek feedback. I do like to be told or to be encouraged by communication. So feedback is healthy, some good critique as well. And I also want to dispel the quote-unquote fear of the unknown. That is a common theme. When we hear about some big project, we're thinking of bulldozers, we're worried about our certain special acreage, or we're worried about things being taken. I will hopefully dispel some of the fear of the unknown. And lastly, to settle some possible rumors, I have developed my thought throughout the few months, and certain old things no longer exist, and I will try to give them to you. That being said, the purpose, I will try to give you a short snapshot of the plan of tonight to keep you hopefully enthused as you see me progress through my agenda for you. The first is to just offer a past, present, and future. It will not take that long, but we will consider the past, of which I was not part of, the present, the year that I've been here, and then the future which we foresee. The second is to introduce our building committee personnel. They were not told of this agenda, and I will not tell them to stand and to raise their hand, but I will just tell you that we have a few people that I am working closely with in order to, again, focus our approach. Then I will give a history from A to Z, just again from the beginning, the conception of our church through the current time. That will be for the church, then the academy, and then as well, and part of the master plan is the full picture. That is what this one demo for you, which was presented by an architect, is to show you. He has sticky notes of what may be where on our 46 acres. And I'll finish with the future and allow for some Q&A, depending on your disposition. So now we can begin just to offer a brief history of the past. I certainly do not claim nor even wish to be totally accurate in this circumstance, but to bring some of you up to speed, and also for some of you older timers that have paved the way, to thank you that the developments have made such a great development over the past. To my knowledge, our church came before the academy in the early 80s, around the 80s, late 70s even, with some people who were trying to fight for tradition, to keep what they knew was correct, and who struggled to come above water, being drowned almost in the influences of Vatican II. We started in different locations, I think we're in our third, maybe fourth location now as we are in Syracuse. And thanks to them, thanks to you, we are now in Syracuse for the church. Then in 1993 was the official start of our academy, which we know today, and today is our 25th anniversary this past year. We will enter this fall the 26th year. And then 10 years ago, we purchased this building. So we have now been here in Warner's 10 years ago. And it was always the intent from the superior's view that this property, which we have now seen, we have 46 acres, was to be the location of church, priory, and academy. And only now, 10 years later, are we trying to push forward with that full picture in the hands of the 5 priests that we have here this fall. That's a short A to Z. And certainly I would like to learn more about the history, but nevertheless, we have been in many locations for our church. This is not going to be a new transition, unfortunately, but we will plan to move the church here onto this property. This is the second location of our school, and we plan to be here, if we can use the phrase, for all eternity. Now I would just like to offer a few introductions to our building committee, master plan group, as you will call it. I have 5 people in particular who I've asked to help, who I meet with from time to time, excuse me, and who I do not wish you to pester, now that you will know certain names, but I certainly encourage you to ask them questions if you want. You may ask me anything, you may ask them some things, but nevertheless, they're not able to give you all information. Some things are not necessarily secret, but they're developing, so they will tell you what they can or what they wish to. But you certainly may talk amongst yourselves on these plans. We are proud of our development, but nevertheless, it is going to be many people who participate, not just one very energetic, idealistic priest. We have Paul Hattie. Of course, all of these are parishioners for you. Brian Page, Vinnie Forelli, Bill Kimball, and Brian Peterson. So that's the core team that I'm working directly with. And others we bring into the ideas. Of course, we bring in some during the summer projects. They are privy to many things to make sure that what we do today is in line with what we want to do in the future. so that we do not redo things. One example is we just changed the kindergarten room to my left, and we found out that that was the original kindergarten room of this building. Very interesting. When we pulled up the floor that was there for the weight room, we saw little animal tiles on the floor. It was due for a kindergarten room. That's where the kindergarten room is there, but we do not want to mix and match continuously. It's your work, it's your money, but also it doesn't help us speed forward to the future. And a great asset for the past are actually many of you who I see today, but also Tom Massett Sr., the eldest. We have 3 generations here tonight. I don't think we have the 4th, but he is a great man of knowledge that I tapped into regarding a lot of these possible adjustments that we will make. Now we would like to enter just to the present. What are we achieving today, the reality? There's much to speak of. I would just like to offer a few things for you to allow you to consume them, to develop them in your own thoughts. The first we will talk about is the current status of the church. I was just told as of today that there's one thing holding back the sale of the church. That is, that we have to get a survey to the Attorney General, the survey of our old property. So if anyone knows where the survey of our old property is, let me know. We have one of the 2 surveys. We have 2 plots of land there. So if anyone can help, otherwise we are trying to push that forward, and that seems to be the last item we need to then forward with the sale. We could be here as of September 1st as an instance of the transition. But yet to today, we don't have any other news for you of a last mass or a moving date, although I know some of you are energetic and ready to move as we need. But that being said, we will of course be here for the church. I will tell you where we will be, what we will do. But before so doing, I wish to mention a few just practical things that some of you don't even know is coming, and I don't wish to shock you, but I hope that you understand some things are left for a point of transition, so we don't change everything at once, but there are also purposes and times at which we will change. The first is that we are adjusting the name of our church. All we're doing is we're shortening it. So you know our name currently is Blessed Virgin Mary, Mother of God Church. That's the official name. We are known most often as BVM Church. And that is exactly what we will go to once we move here. Blessed Virgin Mary Church. That's all we're doing. We're just shortening the name and making it a little bit more consumable and a little bit more announceable, if we can use that term, to the general public. We are having a new website, or actually our first church website. Up until now, we've had a joint website with our academy. It's worked very well, but now as we expand, we need a church and an academy. And therefore, the church academy, or the church website, is Blessed Virgin Mary Church in Priory. Then we will also go to a new bulletin format. I actually have a demo here for you. You certainly may peruse and ask Vinny Ferrelli what he's doing. He's working in conjunction with me, but this will be a monthly edition. It's a 4-page large edition that we will come out with. Certain things will not be put in there, the serving schedule as an example, but also will offer us much more real estate at a smaller price. Because I was told many weeks there's just either a great price to pay for that square footage of the bulletin, or it has to wait till next week. We will go to a monthly bulletin, September 1st being the first one that we will issue. If we are here or not, that will be the time of the publication. On that note, it will take a lot more organization to foresee what will come to make sure the bulletin is accurate. And those who wish to put bulletin announcements in have to be 4 weeks ahead of the game. We'll see how it goes, but I've been used to this in my prior location, and it should work to the advantage that we may have. But it'll be something that you refer to week by week for a whole month. Also, as we transition from the church to here, we will be going into the chapel. And of course, you know that because of the Academy Masses, the benedictions. But we will be transferring the statuary. So currently you see 3 statues in the front of the chapel, St. Joseph on the main altar. And it wasn't dawned upon me till a little after I got here that was St. Joseph's chapel. It makes sense. St. Joseph is the focal point. And actually there's a artistic rendition of a Saul at the top of the main altar wall. But we will now go to Blessed Virgin Mary Chapel, and therefore we need to put an image of Our Lady at the main altar. And also we want to go away from a statue being on top of the tabernacle. It's not appropriate to set a statue or anything upon a tabernacle except a cross, crucifix, or the one exception is a bambino at the time of Christmas. So to get away from that, we are going to a smaller statue of Our Lady, which we have not yet identified. We might use one of our current ones that will be put upon a little shelf. And a small example is here before you. One of our parishioners is making some different options. This is actually the initial. Today he brought me a second edition. Nevertheless, we will have a shelf upon which the statue of Our Lady will rest upon. And then we hope to actually put above that a crucifix that will be affixed to the wall rather than the small golden one at the feet of St. Joseph. That's the main altar. And consequently, we have to change the side altars, the alcoves. They don't mesh, having a small one at the main altar, life size at the side altars or the side statuary. So we again will put shelving in those alcoves about a foot above the current plateau. The current plateau will be a place for flowers, relics, and then the Sacred Heart will be the one from the Sacred Heart side altar of the current church. And the St. Joseph will be the current statue at the side altar of our current church side altar. And that is why we took them away from you last weekend. They're currently here, and we're just trying to size them up and put them there. We also will be changing the Mass times. I think by now you know them, 6:30, 8:30, and 10:30. We will start with those 3 Masses. We have a couple of things up our sleeve to help make sure that everyone fits. I will announce them to you. But one of the big changes that happened this morning when we had a crisis, a true crisis that we overcame, was to change the 8:30 to a low Mass from a high Mass. So currently the 6:30 and 8:30 will be low Masses, and then the 10:30 will be the sung Mass for us going forward. The reason being is that we need the time for catechism. After the first Mass is too early for some, and after the second Mass is too late for others. We will have most things, as in catechetical, server instruction, during the 8:30 Mass. We can't serve everyone. We can't have it available for everyone to be at unless you stay here all day, which certainly is optional. And that was during this time of St. Pius X, but not practical today. Therefore, those going to the 8:30 will not partake in the children catechism, will not be able to go to the adult catechism, although that is recorded, will not have the server training for the altar servers, and so on. But that's the current context that we want, and therefore if you have children in the Sunday catechism, you will have to go to the 6:30 or the 10:30. We will have some options for the wheelchairs and the handicapped. Of course, we are already thinking that. We know we will have access for them, so they do not have to worry. We do have handicap accessible. We will use, God willing, the glass door entrances for the church, and then we'll just make a right as we come in, make a quick left down the academic hallway, make a left into the chapel hallway, and you're there into the chapel. But all of that should be accessible very easily with the wheelchairs, and the ushers will be ushered through or directed to all the details that I will put forth to enable these things to happen and to be very welcoming to those in need. And on that note, the ushers will go through a training program, their own orientation, which they're very glad to do, and I hope that we have more ushers than not, because the ushers will be a very key role in this transition to make sure that we all have seats, we all are having the things we need, that if people are exhausted, stifling, windows need to be opened, booklets need to be given, bulletins need to be found, all of the above, they will be the key players, they will be marked, and they will be able to be utilized by all of you. And we will at some point make clear by signage what parts of the building are not accessible. You know by now that this is one building that has everything in it. A priory, an academy, a boarding house, and now a church. So not everything is accessible to everyone. If we just had identification cards, if you passed through someplace you weren't able to go, the buzzer would go off, and the ushers would be there to put you back to where you belong. It doesn't exist. Nevertheless, we will have places for you to go or places to remain out of. One very practical thing is currently we don't have showers in the boarding house upstairs. They still come down to this level to shower in the locker rooms. It's not very appropriate that their shower area would be accessible to the general public on a Sunday morning. And all of you wish that the boarding boys do shower before they go to Mass. Therefore, we do have double doors both at this chapel hallway end and at this girl hallway end as well. Both of those will be shut during certain times with appropriate signage to say not permitted except if you are X, Y, or Z. So those are just, again, a few limitations that you'll see. We will clearly mark them, but certainly I ask for your respect and accommodations for that. It makes sense. Not everything here is parish, and not everything here is also academy, and not everything here is priory. And that is why we want to use those glass door entrances and not the main entrance behind me, although that will be the entrance typically for any academy hour operation. The confessions, we hopefully will have them during every Mass during Sunday to accommodate, again, the large parish, the growing parish that we have, and the travelers. Please note my recent bulletin announcement on that. You can go back to a week or so. That we cannot forget that confession line, our examination of conscience, the confession itself, and possibly our penance afterwards, does take us away from the Mass. And we're obliged, under pain of mortal sin, to attend Mass on Sunday and holy days. It's because of necessity. It's because of the current situation that we allow confessions during Mass. Perfectly fine, so continue going to the confessions during Mass. But it could be good to examine yourself before. It could be good to do your penance after Mass. It could be good, again, to recollect on the Mass during your confession line. And the priest typically will stop your confession during the consecration. All those things are just there to advise you, again, not to forget your obligation to be at Mass. And that might also help you if you have the opportunity to go to confession during the week when it's not a problem in that regard. Also that for the confession line, you've, I think now noticed that the confession line is the back pew against the wall. That is reserved just for that. But because of that, we want to make sure we know that no one should sit there but those in confession line for Mass. Of course, those who need to, it's optional. That's why the ushers will know who's who. But any young adult who's just sneaking into the chapel doesn't need to be there. And also, please note that that is a traffic way, thoroughfare. So if you do not need to be there, it's best not to. If you're kneeling down in the last pew, that is, your legs are extending into that row, you're an obstacle to people coming through, especially if you're my legs. They're long and they trip people. So please just note that. It's not a paranoia or a thing of contention, but if you do go to the church when it's filled with pews and empty of people, just go to someplace other than that last row for the sake of convenience. of those coming. Regarding babysitting, I announced this at the last Altar and Rosary meeting. Nothing obligatory, but we certainly wish to possibly offer during the Masses on Sunday an opportunity for you to bring your younger children who are not obliged to go to Mass to stay. We'll have a classroom, some people to watch, and you could bring your 2 and 3 and 4-year-olds that might distract you from Mass. You want to attend Mass, that could be a possibility. And also that can take away from some of the cluster in the chapel, be it a car seat, be it extra things, or children just laying on the pews. Not that that is a true inconvenience, but it could be a way for us to work on some of our practical difficulties. So more on that is forthcoming, but please just note that there is a possibility. Ask for the young adults to possibly offer their assistance if so necessary. Regarding the cry room, we will hopefully designate an area, but most likely the chapel hallway will be the quote-unquote cry room. The mothers can leave, get their children under control, and still be in a proximity to the chapel as much as possible. And that is why we don't want just people to be out there, because again, the ushers will be told on what is necessary. You have to see Mass. You have to hear Mass. So not that if you just hear a bell once in a while, you're attending Mass. Everyone that can be should be in the chapel proper. For nursing mothers, of course, a particular question that we will have more just the end hallway that no one needs to be at. But be for those nursing mothers, we'll have chairs back there, and no one should need to be there but those who might want the privacy to do so. We mentioned catechism for children, altar serving available. Those things will be in the bulletin as of this week. And even for those who travel from afar, as the Geneva Chapel has closed, we are now trying to offer to some of those families not having much of these things an opportunity for those times. Now we have 3 options. That's a quick expose. You might be thinking to yourself, Father, I know more than you at least on this one point, and I will not challenge you at all. That chapel will not hold all of us. We have about 500 parishioners, and that chapel holds, according to fire code, 152. We have 150. We can sit in there most likely. Last year we had school masses when we had about 165 because we have young munchkins. But it's true that 500 does not fit into 3 times 150. But we have about 425 people that attend Mass on a weekly basis. We've been counting that throughout this last year. 425 does fit into 450. But this year we will have about 40 boarders who last year did not attend the church masses. 425 plus 40 is above 450. We're concerned about all these details, and they will be attended to, but note that we do have some possible solutions. Option 1 is to come directly into the chapel. It's going to work. My prayers will be heeded, and we'll find a solution. Option 2 is that we can go to a 4th Mass that is a flex Mass. It will not be published in the bulletin monthly because there will be days we don't need it. Days when boarding boys come back, we'll have an evening Mass at 6 o'clock. We can have the hunting Mass at 4 a.m. We can have many different flex Masses, but the 3 will be the permanent ones. Option 3 is that we can come into this gym. And I use the term gym very particularly, as you'll hear in a few moments. We can come into this gym. It is perfectly feasible. You know we've had Masses here. But before we come in here, I demand that we do remodel it. It's currently not a proper setting for a Mass. Again, it's not against the Masses that were here, but it will be a motivation for us to fix the holes and to fix the stage and to paint it. That is a motivation, and I will demand that with my building committee. I will convince them of such, and I hope that we can do that. It won't take much. We can worry about the windows to graduation, but that is something we need to have done. This can certainly hold the amount of people we need on a given Sunday. But what that will require is that we set up Saturday night and take down Sunday afternoon. this is utilized during school, especially during the winter months. There again, we're a church, we're a priory, we're an academy, we're a boarding house. It's very difficult to juggle. Thanks be to God, I do like to juggle. But please note that is option 3. Option 4 is what we are pursuing as of now. Some of you have been seeing me run. I ran a half a marathon 3 weeks ago by now. And I'm still alive to prove that any of you can do it. But nevertheless, there is a marathon on October 20th, which is an occasion for us to raise money for our gymnasium. This is the gym, that is the gymnasium. And that will be, once it's built, and God willing, it will take 2 years. We're getting some thoughts from an architect. It goes up very quickly, and it will not be done as a gymnasium. We will keep the basketball hoops down. The permanent floor will not be put in, because that will be used as our temporary church for the next 5 to 10 years. Again, realistically, we need to build a church on these 46 acres. I have no vision of accomplishing that in the next decade because of financials and because of the grand scheme to build something the size we need. But that will get us out of the small chapel, put us into a new building, large enough, clean enough, and also psychologically a different building from the midst of an academy. That's our option 4, and we're already working, going from 1 to 4. That's our plan. Now, of course, the marathon money that I will raise myself will be nothing in comparison to what we need for that gymnasium, but we are trying to headhunt in a good way. I have a few benefactors to my most right that hopefully will lay down the money we need or sufficient funds to help that gymnasium go up. Again, it's the gymnasium. Many people would support such a thing, but it will act for us as a temporary church for the near future, but will give us enough time to breathe and then focus upon big church. To note that development, I did meet with an architect, not to scare you because nothing has been officially contracted. They're just helping me with my ideas and to make them become colorful for you. But he is currently planning 5 options for me and for you. The site plan is there. So we had a survey done, 46 acres. You can see it all outlined with string. The roll of large plans are the architectural images of what you see before you. The outline is what you see, the property. And he's going to present 5 different options. Where do we want the gym? 5 different places. Where do we want the church? 5 different places. Where do we want the ball fields? All of that. And from there, we will go on tweaking and developing our final plan. But in that, I also asked that he give me a figure. How much will it be to build a general gymnasium? He has a few ideas of what I think, to have a few classrooms around so that the high school boys can go in there once it's built. The high school boys will be in the gymnasium for classes once the gymnasium is built. They'll be away from the general academy building. And then later on, those rooms will be the weight room, the AD's office, and so on. They'll be utilized for that going forward, not misused. He will tell me a price tag, how many hundreds, how many millions. He also will tell me how long it will take to build it. A year, 2 years, 2.5. And of course, nothing has been done, no architectural plans, so we have to go from A to Z. He will help us to understand how long we have to wait. But that is currently being proposed. And as I was already offered some options, this is just an example of an option that was presented to me. The ball fields are on the lower right. I do think the convent is in purple, but that's not where we're putting it. The church is in the yellow square structure. The blue is the convent, and the purple is the cemetery. The black is parking lot, the red is gymnasium, and so on. But it's something that we are considering. We'll have 5 different options. This is not one that we've gone with to today. And that will hopefully help us to foresee what is coming and what we need to go forward. But the exact location of this gymnasium is not yet determined. Now the academy. The academy name change will come and unveil to you on October 13th of this year. We will have our homecoming weekend, which all of you are welcome, but I will leave that till then, although some of you know what is going on. We will unfold the coat of arms, the new coat of arms that we will have at that point as well. And of course, you might have known that during the summer we have been changing almost every square inch just on the operations of it. You might be accustomed to a floor plan of the academy. Nevertheless, that's the plan that we have. Second floor, first floor operations. We are currently in the auditorium gymnasium. And we've changed a lot of those functions. We've dedicated the whole upstairs to the dormitory, which necessitates to bring down the high school boys' classrooms, which necessitates to play musical classrooms. So I do thank all of you once again for your work and help. It's under development for us today. And you can see what we've done. We've just scribbled in pencil all the things that have changed. But regarding that in the dormitory, we will go from last year 31 boarders to right now we're at 44. If we accept everyone, if everything goes through, my number of 50 might be accomplished. I have a few up my sleeve. That could come to play. But that's the current status. We are having more. Some of our local students will board as well to get a search information that they are seeking as well. That's the current. So the current developments of this summer are leading us to the future. We're trying to bulk up the boarding. If we can sustain 50 in this building, that's good. After a year or two, do we have more interest and we need more? That's a question we will have to come to. If we want to house more than 50 boarders, we will most likely have to build a separate building just for the dormitory. It's not in our current plans right now, but we know that that might be a future plan if we so need. But otherwise, we are a boarding school that dedicates the upstairs to their living quarters. Sufficient for that. It leaves the hallway on the base and then the hallway on the bottom left for the academy classrooms. You'll see all the numbers listed. That is all the academics. The top left is more the administration. It gives the gym for what we need, and the upstairs for the dorm. After that, once we do get rid, I have to watch my terms, but once we do give the chapel to the church, or at least to the gymnasium in 2 years, that chapel area is now usable. Because currently we are filled. Currently we have no square footage for some of our staff. It's a great problem, but it took 10 years when we thought we had room, too much, now we have no room. But there is where, once we